It's morning, and my bed is not supposed to look like this. Good sleep otherwise, though. Still stays 14, 15 degrees warmer inside the tent, even with the stove out. It's just not even hot to the touch anymore. But you can stir those embers up and start a fire pretty easy, which is nice. Then the next problem is that this is all the wood I've got left to get me through all day today, tonight, tomorrow all day, and then tomorrow night. So I think you'll get to see me use the chainsaw, and then I get to try to split it with this little guy, which is a dull hand splitter. Not exactly the tool for the job, but we'll figure it out. And I think it's officially time to solve the wood problem. So my site is backed by a giant hill that goes up into the woods. That's all just state forest. So this is a reasonable place to take a little bit of wood, provided it's dead and down. And preferably we get dead down wood that's also hardwood and hopefully dry. So hopefully I can show you a little bit about how we decide what's worth cutting down while we're out there. So this is the bad boy that I've marked. It looks like the kind of tree that's been hanging out here for more than a year. So you're looking for something that's cleared up off the ground like that. Because if it sits on the ground, it ends up rotted out. Maybe a little rotted on the tip, but I'm hoping once I get up a little bit, it won't be. I hear a lot of confusing information, and it took me a long time to figure out what people are talking about when they're talking about hardwood and softwood. When you talk about identifying trees and knowing what the barks look like and stuff like that, I have a much more simple way that I like to think about it that I think is true more than 80% of the time. Basically, most of your hardwoods are deciduous trees, so trees that lose their leaves in the winter months. So it's really easy when you're out here in the winter. All I recommend doing is find the tree. You might be able to tell that it's hard or soft. If it's got pine needles all over it, then it's obviously a pine tree. But if you just take a look at the bark, and rather than memorize 1,000 trees, just look around you, because there's probably another tree with the same bark, or there's 100 of them, and then you just look straight up, and it's not a pine tree, then it's hardwood. Other miscellaneous advice: check your state parks rules and make sure that you're allowed to bring a chainsaw, because some of them specifically say do not use a chainsaw. Second bit of advice: if you're using an electric chainsaw, you don't want to be firing up something that sounds like a dirt bike out here where people are trying to play outside. This thing looks like a real chainsaw, it operates like a real chainsaw, but it sounds like a toy chainsaw. Nice. That's a solid looking piece of wood. There's a little bit of moisture here, but this is nice and dry to the touch. I They do make moisture meters. I've never used one, but if you chop down your wood before you're out of wood, just use your wood stove to dry out other pieces when they're split. This little chainsaw, not very powerful, but it's a heck of a lot more powerful than spending an hour and a half up here with a handsaw. Boy, that's gonna keep going forever. Bury some of this down underneath this snow so it just doesn't look like a chainsaw mess out here. You see cut trees all over the state park from where people cleared. That's normal. But the pile of sawdust, I like to try to clean that up. Don't leave a mess so that when people go into the park, they can still have a beautiful surroundings. It's not, there's not traces left behind of humans, which I appreciate, and I try to hold the same standard. So yeah, it really didn't take all that long. A couple of minutes of cutting. Yeah, 5 big logs. Well, that one in the back is only half useful, but 5 good ones, and that'll get you through a whole night. Gonna try to have this follow me, but if it can't, I might have to do it backwards. We'll find out. Well, you're gonna find out with me, so you might find out that my knot tying abilities are pretty weak, because this is heavy. All right. Okay, it wants to go backwards. I think I might have to step actually inside of this. It's pretty heavy. I think this thing's gonna step in. Rope like that. And, I'll try to pull it. Ooh-wee. Come with me, buddy. Yeah, what could go wrong? So I don't know, maybe 100 pounds of wood. And me here, pretty flat to the left there. But I don't think I can control it from behind it once it gets going. Sorry if you're looking at the back of some leaves and things, this is a really good trail. Path of least resistance right now. Hit a jump there. Whew. Made it. If you listen, that's sort of what dry wood usually sounds like. These pieces, a little less dry. Particularly this one, it rolled down the hill and it fell into the river. This is that totally end piece. But these three, as I got further down that log, much more dry than the ones right up on the end. I have faith, but sometimes you need more than faith to split a log. Ooh, I got a crack though. That'll work. Oh yeah. Beauty. Really dry, actually. Well, for now, until I throw it around in the snow for 5 minutes. That'll do. That will do. Not bad at all. Didn't think it was gonna be that easy, to be honest. Some of these heavier pieces that felt a little wet, there's moisture lines, and these lines of moisture eventually become the start of rot. But I think I can chop that up and use most of this piece. So I'm just gonna burn some of these pieces that are either have water or the start of some mold forming here. But now that the ground is all thawed out in here, I'm probably going to grab some sticks and make a little shelf. Take a little morning jaunt up Bald Mountain. So this trail, it's 1.7 miles up on all trails. Looking at other people's hike data, it's like it's maybe hour up, hour down. I'm gonna take my time. It's only my first night out. I'm staying 2 more nights, so I'm trying not to get like dripping with sweat. But we'll see how that goes. I have a hard time not just cruising up the mountains when I go. Wow, I'm gonna take a look at this. You'll never see it all on a short little video. You just have to come hike it yourself. Sorry if I don't get all this on video. I'm dodging my way through golf-sized pieces of ice. I think it's just above freezing today. And the snow coming over the top of the hill, hitting these ice pieces that are stuck on all the tops of all these trees. And yeah, there's pieces of ice about that big around, just falling indiscriminately around me. Pretty good sized pieces of ice. And I think they're just melting these little hairline bits. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this little chunk of hill is the reason this is classified as moderate. I'm at 1.6 miles. I'd say this is pretty easy so far. How cool though. I really would say it feels a little more moderate on this back section. And if I didn't mention it already, you need spikes for sure, because this is a sheet of ice. We are 1.7 miles from the campground, and the summit was 1.7 miles away from the campground, and I am at the summit. I mean, Mount Monadnock's in Jaffrey, so this must just be what you're looking at, which is actually kind of cool. That over there is Stratton Mountain. That would make sense. Not that I know much about it. other than you can ski on it, and then it's not very far from here. Really nice hike, easy to get up, pretty darn scenic at the top, and if you dare to do it in the winter, some pretty cool stuff to see. So look at that. I've never seen anything quite like that. Crazy. I did bring my cross-country skis. Hard to tell what's open and what's not. I actually might make a cup of tea and use the cell service at the top of this mountain to do a little investigating and plan the next couple days of my trip. Lot of ice. Recommend peeling bark off of dead trees. I see people taking bark off of standing birch trees all the time. So fire in winter conditions pretty much always means a fire in wet conditions. You can get something like birch or pack in newspaper. It's nice to have something highly flammable. Dried leaves are okay. In the tent, actually, where the wood stove is, there's a bunch of dried leaves. If I couldn't find birch, I might use that. And yeah, kind of a mix of whatever you've got that's gonna light easy, and you want these little itty bitty twigs that snap when you bend them. So if they bend but don't snap immediately, then they're probably gonna be difficult to light. The smaller the better. If you get one, you can use them to light several. Stack them up. Get a little bigger piece going. Takes a little patience. Smaller's always better. And just keep in mind that every time you add something on in wet conditions, it's not just lighting the material, but it's the little bit of fire you have has to cook off the moisture first. Yeah, I'll stop talking. You can watch. Quite possibly the easiest dinner I could have made. Just put a bunch of dehydrated vegetables in a pot and put some water in there. Waited. Move the operation inside, but yeah, that's starting to look a lot more like food. I like the little potatoes because they start as little diamond shaped things and then they inflate into little cubes. So I'm using them as the gauge that tells me that all of this is hydrated. I added half a can of tuna and a little bit of that smoked maple cheddar cubed up, and by God, we got ourselves a meal. Did a little rearranging to give myself a little more space away from the fire tonight. It was pretty toasty being right up against the fire. I don't know if I showed you my sleeping setup yet, but basically it's just you can call it a 0 degree sleeping bag. It's from Coleman. it's not a 0-degree sleeping bag. It's probably comfortable down to 25 degrees, and then you're chilly if you're just in this and it's 25 degrees. I've just got a regular summer sleeping pad, inflatable, but then underneath it I put a piece of Reflectix, which is just like bubble wrap and tinfoil put together basically. But this stuff really makes all the difference. So when you put your hand flat on this moving blanket on a tarp with snow underneath it, you can feel the cold air kind of coming through into your hand. If I'm too hot from the fire, I'll sit down or lay down or take my slippers off and put my feet on that to cool down. This bad boy entirely blocks everything. So this, same temperature as my hand. So if I stuff that in here and I shove everything down inside of my sleeping bag, I used to kind of stack it. I've tried like putting a bungee around and bunging it together, but this is by far the easiest way to do it. Is just shove it in there, and then to be honest, most of the time this is zipped up and I'm just sleeping on this like a nice cushy mattress, and I just use this little fleece blanket, and that's all I really need most nights. It's honestly usually bordering on too hot in here, not too cold if the stove is going. Usually try to fill this a little better before I go to bed, but as is, this will probably burn for 4 or 5 more hours if I damper it way down. This has got the damper wide open right now, that's why it's raging, but if I close it, the smoke comes out the front. But yeah, I didn't pull the ashes forward underneath, and being here for a couple of nights in a row, there's actually enough ash buildup that it's starting to lift the wood up a little bit and it hits the top of the stove, so I can't fit as much in there. So tomorrow I've definitely got to shovel this bad boy out, I think. My plans for tomorrow were going to be to do a little bit of downhill skiing. I was hoping to do a rental and a lesson, but it sounds like the conditions are still going to be icy and be doing a lot of sliding around. So what I did instead was booked a snowmobile tour. So I'm gonna have my own sled and get to take it out for a cruise. So yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get a little footage of that. But we'll find out. Maybe we'll check out one of the other state parks around here. There's 2 that are close by that I'd also like to take a peek at. But in any case, I should get to bed. So see you tomorrow.